Welcome to Retina Up. I'm Scott Krzywonos.
And I'm John Kitchens.
John, today we have two guests on the show. These are two people I have never met, and I've now met them through you. The first one is Frank Brodie. He's an assistant professor of ophthalmology at UCSF, and he invented something called LensOne, which is a prosthetic capsular bag. Can you just give us the skinny or give us the 10,000-foot view on this thing, like why it's even needed?
Scott, it solves a major problem that we have. You hear about all of these different techniques people use to fixate lenses after complicated cataract surgery, Yamani, 4-point fixation, and whatnot. And there's a lot of arguments over which is the best technique. Usually when you have something like that, it means there's no great technique. You know, they're unreliable, they're tough to do. And I saw Frank's technology, this LensOne technology, 3 or 4 years ago. And I'll tell you, I was so impressed. It's very rare that I invest in startup technology, but I said, I have to invest at least something to get this off the ground and get this going. And I'm so glad that Frank has been able to get this so close to market. And we're going to hear an update about that, but it really solves the secondary IOL situation when you have compromised capsular bag in such an amazing way.
Yeah, I was just at the clinical trials at the summit meeting, and he received an award there for his presentation, and I think this technology in general. So I don't think you're the only person excited about this technology. Our other guest is Hunter Cherwek. He's the VP of Clinical Services at Orbis, and I think you and Hunter have known each other for a while, right?
Hunter and I go way back. We met through a mutual friend. Andrew Berkowitz introduced me to Hunter. And
Okay.
Hunter is, you know then the type of person that Hunter is. If you get introduced to somebody through Andrew Berkowitz, you know they're going to be a good person. And Hunter is just this energetic ophthalmologist by training. But when he got out of his training, he started with Orbis. And he has been so influential in international eye care. He has such a heart for this and such a passion for it. We did this interview a while back talking to him about what Orbis does and AI and whatnot. And he's just a fantastic person.
Yeah, it's a testament to the type of people that enter medicine in general, but I think ophthalmology in particular, right? That there is a mission-driven aspect to entering this field of medicine, especially, when you're dealing with developing nations and places where there might not be access to care in any significant way. For the uninitiated, Orbis runs, among other things, a flying eye hospital that will land in places where there is very little care. And John, if I'm overstating this, let me know. But they basically set up an OR, I think, in the airplane, and it's whoever can show up and get there is going to receive some level of care, which is better than no care. And they do not let perfect get in the way of good enough.
No, and they've been committed to educating ophthalmologists in underserved areas all over the world, and they continue this on with their training now online and virtually. And so we're going to hear about some of that from Hunter as well. Today's episode is made possible by Genentech, maker of Vabysmo, faricimab, SVOA. To hear peer perspectives and case studies on Vabysmo, you can check out their Purple Chair series, featuring Dr. David Eichenbaum unpacking what drying looked like in a real-world DME patient treated with Vabysmo. Catch Dr. Eichenbaum and the entire Purple Chair series at vabysmo-hcp.com or click the link in today's show notes.
Welcome back, listeners. We are here with Dr. Hunter Cherwek. He is the Vice President, Clinical Services and Technologies at Orbis International. Hunter, welcome to Retina Up.
It's awesome to be here.
Hunter, we've been friends for a long time. Met you through our mutual great friend, Andrew Berkowitz. Most people know you as somebody associated with Orbis. I don't know that everybody knows that you're an ophthalmologist, actually. I think they see you as being this international man of mystery, but you actually trained in ophthalmology at Emory, did a chief residency at Emory, and then right out of residency went into working with Orbis. What was your thought behind such a unique path?
Yeah, so I take great pride in people not knowing I'm an ophthalmologist. I worked with a very famous retina doctor in Vietnam, and at the end of the week, I was doing a debrief with him. And he goes, Hunter, I just have to stop you. You're asking all these great patient questions. How did you learn so much ophthalmology? And I said, well, we covered some in med school, but I sure covered a lot at 3 years at Emory. And he turned white as a ghost. He was mortified. But yeah, I knew I was going to do global work ever since I was 19. I got a scholarship at UNC to go and live in Kenya and did some amazing transformative work in my life and knew that I really loved working in low resource settings, focused on those challenges, and actually chose ophthalmology because of its application to global health. I would say out of all the surgical disciplines, it's probably the one that is most applicable to global health. And I've been doing it ever since. I literally graduated my residency at 5 p.m. I turned in my pager and I flew that night to China to join the Flying Eye Hospital in Western China.
How does it make it so applicable to global health? What is it about ophthalmology that makes it so appealing?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's a huge global need. It's not some esoteric disease. It's everywhere. Everyone has, a family member affected with, refractive error or diabetes or cataract as they get older. But a lot of the surgeries can be done without an ICU, without blood transfusions, without, general anesthesia. I've seen literally people doing small incision cataract surgery without electricity. They're using headlamps and manual techniques to remove cataracts in parts of the world. So for me, it's incredible that you can do surgeries now on a flying eye hospital, which we've done. We have a US accredited hospital, so we can even do it on a plane. But also, we have partners and work in locations where they're doing it where they convert a school into an OR during the summer, and people are coming down from the Himalayan mountains and getting cataract surgery. So it's an incredible time. I love the fact that we're so innovative. We're literally at Orbis bringing artificial intelligence to the farthest corners of the world. We're able to bring training and transfer those skills in fairly short periods of time. So for me, it's probably out of all the surgical disciplines, the one that need the least from the hospital. There's a huge global need, and we're able to transfer a lot of these skills in fairly short order to a lot of well-trained eye health professionals already in the countries.
Let's back up just a little bit
Yeah,
for our listeners who aren't super familiar with Orbis International. You mentioned the Flying Eye Hospital, but
yeah.
tell us about its mission, what its scope is, how many surgeons are working there. Just give us a month in the life at Orbis.
Yeah, so Orbis is a global nonprofit. We first took flight in 1982. So we've been operating a flying eye hospital, which is really our icon. And as I said, it is a US accredited hospital. We do teaching, we do skill transfer on the plane, but the plane is only about 15% of what we do, 15%. So we do everything from CyberSight, which is the world's largest freely available distance learning platform, where just the other day we gave a lecture and we had 127 countries watching live. So we are a software company. We do distance learning. We have our own in-house AI team that are doing diabetic and glaucoma screening in all parts of the world. We have a huge team in Ethiopia. There's an infectious cause of blindness called trachoma, and basically it causes corneal blindness because the bacteria gets under the eyelids of children and community members. It causes scarring. The eyelashes rotate in, and like a broken windshield wiper, scratches the cornea. So it's one of the most painful causes of blindness. And every year we distribute somewhere between 200 and $250 million of Zithromax or Z-Pak to get rid of that bacteria. And I do think if we keep going at the trajectory we're going, we're going to get it off the face of the earth in 10 years. And for me, that might be the coolest thing we've done, is get a disease that has caused blindness for literally thousands of years. It's in religious text, and get that off the face of the earth. That's pretty cool. So, for me, I love the diversity of our team. We have over 450 volunteers from all 6 continents. The Flying Eye Hospital is really the Flying United Nations. The only time it breaks down is during the World Cup because the Brazilians start fighting with the Italians. I'm totally kidding. But for me, and I know when you watch the news these days, it can be very, very disappointing. Let's just leave it at that. For me, the Flying Eye Hospital is the best example of functional diplomacy I've ever seen. And when I look in that OR and see people from all corners of the world transferring skills, and the only thing they're focused on is that patient under the blanket, for me, it's probably the most meaningful thing I've ever done in medicine, probably my life.
Hunter, did Orbis start with the Flying Eye Hospital and has it evolved to all these other things, or did it start with something else and then did you acquire the plane?
No, that's a great question. So for me, the plane started with an ophthalmologist, David Payton, who I got to meet before he recently passed. And you want to talk about someone who had a million ideas. That guy had a million ideas. And with other founders, he came together with the aviation community, and the whole concept was taking the latest technologies and taking them to the parts of the world that they could transfer skills. Just when they were starting the concept of intraocular lenses and phacoemulsification. And I can tell you, whenever the plane goes somewhere, some of the senior surgeons and chairmen and chairwomen of the departments will come up and say, I did my first surgery on the Orbis plane. I did my first retina surgery. So I know your community and listeners are largely retina focused. I can assure you, we have literally taught many of the key doctors now in different regions and in different countries how to do vitrectomies and all the things we take for granted here in the US. So the plane started the organization. And certainly we've gone through 3 aircraft, a DC-8, a DC-10, and now an MD-10. But that was the platform upon which we built our country programs, where we built over 35 children's eye hospitals in India, or the drug distribution that I described in Ethiopia. We now have offices throughout the world. So we have over 350 employees. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that our largest office is actually in Ethiopia, not New York. And I love the fact that the plane is probably the best combination of talent and geography I've ever seen, especially from Orbis. So the plane has really started Orbis, but it's now only about 15% of what we do. And we're doing everything from diabetic retinopathy. I'm wildly proud of our team that works on retinopathy of prematurity. I know you and I have some similar buddies in that community. I never thought when I was graduating med school I would be taking ROPAI to Outer Mongolia. And those children are some of the first children in the world to be able to be diagnosed or assisted diagnosed using Orbis and our partners and the work that Pete Campbell and Paul Chan have done at Siloam Vision. So for me, I'm not God's gift to anything, but if you ask me my superpower, I'm really, really good at finding experts and global citizens in technology and getting them connected to the bottom billion. And, for me, we're solving a lot of problems that have haunted humankind for literally, centuries. And, for me, that's super exciting that I'm going to finish my career and maybe see the last case of trachoma, or, find out that AI is able to use remote technologies like cell phones and have people get diagnoses of glaucoma or diabetes within 30 seconds. I mean, it's so incredible what we're able to do now and how we're able to take these technologies and trainings to the bottom billion, so to speak.
How do you fund an operation like this? Because this ain't cheap, and I'm
Yeah.
curious how you have some income to support the mission.
And we are a nonprofit. So every year we start back at zero. And it's through corporate sponsors like Alcon. I will say FedEx has been amazing. Fred Smith recently passed away, the founder of FedEx. His family personally came to our event and continued their commitment to support our organization. We get individual donors. We have fundraising offices throughout the world, including Hong Kong and Canada and Ireland and the UK. I would say we do get government grants. Obviously, that sector has been impacted significantly. We get research grants. We get foundations. We have a very diversified portfolio of funding, both through geographies as well as funding mechanisms.
And then, Hunter, every time you say yes to doing a procedure, it also means saying no to doing some other procedure. So how does Orbis triage which procedures are going to be most cost effective? You mentioned, for example, a Z-Pack, right? That seems like a really cost effective way to prevent blindness. I'm curious where and how you decide where that line is.
Where there's prevalence or need, where there's impact, and where we can have ROI. And I don't mean return on investment, return on impact. So yes, if you had told me again that when I was in med school, I'd be doing a webinar where 127 countries are watching live, I would have told you to put down your drink and it's time to go home. I would say for me, we look for solutions that are scalable. That's why I'm so excited by AI. I was just on before this phone call today, I was waking up early and speaking to our team in Vietnam. They're literally screening thousands of patients every month with diabetes that have never gotten an eye exam. And the thing that I love about a lot of these technologies, they're scalable, they're inexhaustible. They literally get this AI running 14 hours a day. And I know John's a machine in his clinic and OR, but everyone gets tired. The thing that I love about it is also, and I can talk for days about this, that our AI is globally. It is not a biased data set where it's from Northern California. We have data representation from all over the world. And that's one of the reasons why it's so accurate, so that the optic nerve of someone from West Africa is not thrown off from an optic nerve from Northern California or Mountain View or Palo Alto. So for me, I love that we lead with our values, and closing the digital divide and the data divide the training data for AI is a huge piece of what we do at Orbis. So to answer your question, we look for scalability, impact, and sustainability. The thing I love about transferring skills is it's not going in and showing off, it's going in and showing how. And it's building the human resources at multiple levels, not just the doctors. We're really good at taking all the credit, but it's actually the community eye health workers, the technicians, the optometrists, the nurses, the anesthesiologists. I give a lecture, and for me, I always tell residents the most serious thing you need to think about in the OR is not vitreous loss or the phaco machine or the retina machine parameters. It's your anesthesiologist. And I'm supremely proud that we do simulation training. We train nurses how to do CPR because when 35% of all of our patients are children, you're talking about general anesthesia. Now you're talking about a very different, set of OR conditions and requirements. And we have minimal standards where there has to be pulse oximetry or monitoring. There's got to be a resuscitation unit. There's got to be a recovery room. All of these things are super important. I mean, it is amazing as you start this work in global health, how everything gets interconnected and how you always have to be thinking about support systems and redundancies. I'm the chairman of the Department of Redundancy Department.
Hunter, you mentioned that the goal of the Flying Eye Hospital is education, and you guys have now transcended that with technology through CyberSight. Talk us through the decision to go online with a lot of the training. When did you guys make that decision? And tell us a little bit about the CyberSight website, which is not just for people in third world countries. It's a great resource for people right here in North America.
In fact, we just recently had the OCAPs, and we had a lot of the residents bombard CyberSight because we have a lot of test prep materials that people like. I would say CyberSight, just like it took a visionary ophthalmologist to help get Orbis started with the plane. There was a pediatric ophthalmologist in Indiana, and I think you know who I'm about to talk to about, John, is Eugene Hevelston. And he was actually the man that interviewed me back in 2003 about this job at Orbis. I thought it was going to be a 1 or 2 year gig, and shows you how much I know. So Gene is another one of these million ideas a minute. He had already been volunteering with Orbis, and he had gotten back from a program in Cuba, of all places, and wanted to continue to support the children that he had done strabismus surgery on, but also mentor the doctors. And this is just when the internet was starting, and we had those really crummy digital cameras, but it was good enough resolution that you could determine strabismus. You may not be able to see the macula and OCT and all this amazing stuff we have now, but he could look at the, pictures of the children looking up, down, left, right, blah, blah, blah. And he say, oh, that kid has Duane syndrome, that kid has Brown syndrome, or whatever. And so it really started off with him and one of his colleagues, Linda Smallwood, starting a basically pediatric online fellowship and mentorship program. And he was so far ahead of his time. But now every single time one of our volunteer faculty go out to do shoulder to shoulder training, there's already months ahead of time where they're doing pre-learning. I'm not going to bring Michael Jordan or John Kitchens to teach someone how to do foul shots. I want them to teach them how to do 360 dunks, how to do these ILM peels and delicate surgery. I don't want to bring you there and give a lecture about diabetic retinopathy. They should do that before you ever take off. And with our e-consult service, and this is where, again, I'm supremely proud of our team, we're able to discuss every single patient before you touch down. That is not a good teaching case. That is a perfect case for me to demonstrate macular hole surgery. So the nice thing is Gene also started an e-consult service, which we've recently augmented with artificial intelligence. Well, the other thing that I'm very proud of is we're also now through CyberSight able to connect the world. We're in every country in the world except for Western Sahara and North Korea. So we literally have connected the world through eyesight and through CyberSight. And so for me, again, things I never thought I'd be doing when I interviewed with Gene Hevelston was talking about CyberSight and AI in Rwanda or Mongolia or Vietnam. Never thought we'd be doing that.
You mentioned the value of AI in supporting your mission, and at least in retina, the one condition that I think AI has been deepest in is diabetic retinopathy. Can you talk to us about how Orbis International is leveraging AI in diagnosing and detecting disease in the developing world?
Absolutely. I'm supremely proud of our field. Out of all the fields of medicine, ophthalmology is the first to have FDA approval for autonomous AI and gene therapy. And we are heavily involved in both. We're connecting kids with ocular geneticists, where there was a child recently in the Philippines, and we connected them with one of our volunteer faculty, Alex Levin in Rochester, right? I would say the thing that I saw immediately with AI was the ability to quickly screen patients, give them a diagnosis, but then also get them in a system. We did a randomized clinical trial in Rwanda. It's called RAIDERS. It's an acronym. I won't bore you with it. We decided to launch this clinical trial at the peak of COVID. So no one could travel, no on site. This is a double IRB study. So there's an IRB within Rwanda and within the UK. We registered it at clinicaltrials.gov. So, I mean, this was all during the height of COVID, all through Zoom, all through Teams, all this stuff. And what we showed was not only that we could implement AI without one person traveling, it improved the referral rate of patients from the hinterlands of Rwanda to the medical retina specialist, Dr. Chiku Matenge, who's one of my heroes in ophthalmology, by 40%. Patient satisfaction was above 99%, but guess what? So was provider. We've done follow-up studies, including with Dr. Abramoff at Digital Diagnostics, where in a retina clinic in Bangladesh, we improved the productivity of a hospital by 40%, but the procedural volume for that retina clinic by 248%. The only person who gets chair time is someone who needs chair time with laser injection or surgery. So I love the fact that we're not only chasing the shiny object of AI like everybody is. We're actually putting it in the hands of people and using it as a force multiplier to improve their diagnosis, patient satisfaction, provider satisfaction, but most importantly, productivity. So that study is called the Be Productive study. I believe it's the first time ever in medicine in a randomized clinical trial that a healthcare technology was shown to improve productivity. I think we can all agree EMR does not improve productivity, nor patient satisfaction, nor provider satisfaction. So I do think AI is an incredibly powerful tool. Like any technology, it comes with both a good and a bad. And Orbis is trying to figure out, how do we maximize the good? And how do we make sure that it reaches the patients who need it most and can be transferred as a force multiplier? My dream is ultimately to task shift retinal diagnoses like diabetic retinopathy to someone who has a high school degree and is literally able to do the fundus imaging and do the same retina diagnosis, if not better, than John Kitchens, which I realize is a low bar, but we'll keep it there for the sake of this. And then the thing that really is getting me excited, and we just did a webinar on this on CyberSight yesterday, is the field of oculomics. And we're also in that space.
Nice.
Where we're now looking at the retina and using AI and biomarkers, able to find either diagnosis or prognostication for totally different diseases like renal disease, cardiac disease, dementia. So for me, the eye is quickly becoming not just the window to the soul, but the window to neurovascular health. And Orbis could be the front leader in getting patients not only diagnosed with eye diseases, but early systemic diseases, because we get a peek inside the neurovascular health of the patient.
No, Hunter, I've always been so impressed with how early you guys are into technology, and it's amazing what you're doing. How do physicians get involved with Orbis, with CyberSight, with this really great initiative and this great program?
Yeah, and like I said, we have 450 volunteers from over 40 countries, and it's not just physicians. It's biomedical engineers, it's anesthesiologists, it's nursing. We have ethicists, we have researchers. One of our top doctors, his name's Matt Wilson. He's at Memphis and St. Jude. He's never done a program with Orbis in the field, but he's diagnosed hundreds of kids with retinoblastoma and managed their cases through CyberSight. So I'm always looking for talent, and we can find ways to get you plugged in. We had an amazing lawyer work with us and help us with informed consent, patient bill of rights. So anyone who's interested in global health and especially eye health, you can go on Orbis. On the website, it literally says, how to volunteer with us. For me, I always want people who are talented, humble, and global citizens. I can find a spot for you somewhere. I think, it's really nice. We also have something called the associate program, where we bring out residents. They are not allowed to operate. They do not give patient care. This is not a way for them to boost their cases. They get mentorship and early exposure to global ophthalmology and look at how to build that into their career. And it's really cool because I've been doing this game now for about 20 years. they'll come up to me and now they're running the global division at this university or they've started their own nonprofit. For me, I find the plane especially is such an inspirational experience. I mean, you're never going to have another plane like that experience. I mean, it's pretty powerful to step on a plane and all of a sudden see lives transformed. I think that for me is exciting where we're getting retina fellows like one of our doctors, he's a retina surgeon, Peter Curtis. He brings his fellows with him on his programs, and the fellows don't operate. They might be able to help, get patients ready, but they're watching all the different things. And now there's, oh yeah, I've already done a paper with Orbis, or I'm now doing a cybersite webinar. So long story long, obviously, if you want to volunteer with Orbis, we're always looking for talent. You can go to our website, Orbis, ORBIS.org. We are a nonprofit. And yeah, we're one of the few organizations that has a large cadre of retina faculty. Most people are doing cataracts. Like I said, a third of our patients are children. We're always looking for ROP, inherited retinal disease, and pediatric retina specialists. You know that's kind of a winged unicorn within the retina community. People who truly love ROP, that is a very rare species. And then people who also then want to take those skills to low resource settings, that is a very special person, and we want to cultivate those people.
Well, Hunter, listen, thank you so much for joining us on Retina Up. Anyone who's interested, go to orbis.org. Up at the top, there's an area to volunteer, and you'll get a chance not only to really impact lives, impact the training of other physicians, but you get a chance to meet Hunter, who I'll guarantee you is one of the most fun and enjoyable people ever to get to know. Hunter, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Take care now. Have a great weekend.
Thanks to Alcon for making this Retina Up conversation possible, and for delivering solutions like Unity VCS that help surgeons experience extraordinary. Discover more at unityvcs.com.
Welcome to the Vitreoretinal View. John, today we're here with Dr. Frank Brodie. He's an assistant professor of ophthalmology at UCSF. Dr. Brodie, welcome to Retina Up.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Frank, I got to say, your technology is something that has excited me for years. I think I first saw it 3 or 4 years ago, and it's one of those things that you just look at and you don't know you need until you see it, and it makes a difficult surgery so incredibly easy. Tell us about LensOne.
It for me, it was just kind of born out of necessity. One of the things I really liked in my residency, which was at UCSF, is every week all the residents got together and reviewed all the surgical cases. And over 3 years of seeing that again and again and again, what struck me was how differently people did secondary lens surgery and how many complications there were as resident after resident had to present those complications. And kind of the aha moment was just realizing, all we're doing is we keep tweaking these lenses, but the lenses are never actually the problem. The problem is the bag. So let's solve the bag problem. And I think once we started kind of going down that rabbit hole, it was really fun trying to figure out the right orientation and what kind of lenses it could fit and all that stuff. And I spent a whole year tinkering with it at Stanford. I did a postdoc at Stanford in their ophthalmic innovation program, which I'll put a little plug for. Is a great experience, a lot of regulatory information there, and it was really wonderful, run by Mark Blumenkrantz and Dave Myung. And from there, kind of the LensOne was born, and was fortunate to kind of be in the Bay Area around a lot of great innovators. Namely, Gene Dewan was a big mentor of mine while I was at UCSF, and Ayman Nasri was my program director, and then he went off to join Gene at Foresight Labs. So I'd been talking to them about it, and we decided to all kind of get together and really make a run of it. And took the technology out of Stanford, and LensOne was born. And we've been working on it now for, about 6-7 years.
And Frank, for our listeners, LensOne, and you can actually now see videos of LensOne. We'll talk about the paper that you just had published or that's in press regarding LensOne, but it's an artificial capsular bag, and literally Yamani, 4-point fixation, all of these crazy techniques that are really technically difficult and create unpredictable outcomes, in my experience at least, are eliminated. And they're eliminated by using the same incision sites that you put your cannulas and trocars in. It's a 3-point fixated capsular bag that you can inject with a lens in it. You want to put a toric lens in, you can put a toric lens in and spin it. You want to rescue a lens and put a rescued lens in it, you can do that. You want to put a multifocal lens in it. It is just amazing to see the LensOne. Where can people go and watch videos of this and actually see this thing in use? And by the way, you can do it in like 3 minutes.
So a great place for information is the Longbridge Medical website, longbridgemedical.com. We've got some cool animations. We've got a little bit of data about the problem. I think one of the best kept secrets in ophthalmology is how complex and actually, complicated a lot of these cases are, the way we're doing it with sutured and glued and Yamani melted haptics. There was a really great paper published, an iris study that was the first author's son, the last author is David Chang, and it looked at all these secondary lens cases, and it had a 14% re-op rate for IOL exchange with vitrectomy, right, which is a secondary lens case. And I mean, that's shocking. I don't think any of us looks at ourselves and say, hey, we have a 14% re-op rate, but the data is the data. And when you get these big studies, they all really pointed the same direction, just saying these are really complicated cases. So sorry, I veered off topic there, but the website, longbridgemedical.com, and then we just published our first in human trial out of Australia. We had 3 surgeons in Sydney, and that's in the Ophthalmology Journal, the AAO Journal, and it should be available online. I don't know when it's going to be in print, but online you can click, and there are videos of the technology, the little diagrams of the capsule, the whole shebang. So
Now,
encourage folks to go check it out.
Frank, you are a surgeon by training. You're not a materials scientist. So who do you have to collaborate with in order to bring this from idea to prototype?
Yeah, I was so fortunate. Gene has really put together a great group of folks at the Foresight Incubator. Matt Clark is kind of the hero of this whole project. He's a material scientist, chemist by training, has been working with Gene for a long time on a number of projects. And he, even before we had kind of licensed out, he was giving me advice in my ear about how to think about different silicones and work with silicone. And certainly once we brought it in, he assembled an incredible team, and they have just transformed the technology, made it so really one size capsule will fit almost everybody. And it's the ability of it to stretch but still hold tight and not kind of flop around is really, it's a feat to behold.
Frank, when will we have access to this? What's the next steps? When are we going to see a US-based clinical study? And more importantly, when will we be able to get this in our operating room and solve this difficult problem we actually have?
Well, so we're very excited. We have a approved pivotal study design. We're planning on launching our U.S. pivotal study this fall in probably about 12 sites. We're in the process of kind of spinning up all those sites now. We'll start this fall. It's a 110, 130 patient study, and hope to have that done after about a year of recruitment, year of follow-up, and be on market in kind of end of 28, early 29 is our goal.
And is this the type of technology that you need to train surgeons on for a long period of time? I mean, John described it as being fairly intuitive, but I'm curious about the PIs in the Golden Gate study. How intimately are you involved with them in teaching them the technology and explaining not just the guts of it, but also how to actually insert it and fixate it?
Yeah, it's definitely different than anything we've done so far, but I think a lot of the steps are very intuitive. There is some training. We can use model eyes. We can use ex vivo porcine eyes. A couple critical steps with how you externalize the foot plates, making sure they're underneath the Tenon's capsule. For retina surgeons, kind of learning to use a lens injector again and making sure we're loading everything right. But we had 100% successful implantations. We didn't have any failed surgeries, and it really was just kind of that benchtop training. We didn't need any live animal training, so we feel pretty good about we've simplified it as much as we can and made it as safe and as it can be for folks doing this surgery and learning it quickly.
Frank, what I think people fail to appreciate is not only, as you mentioned, these cases have a lot of reoperation, but they're a very high legal risk for our anterior segment colleagues. Usually they follow a complicated cataract surgery. The outcomes are unpredictable. You get tilted lenses with Yamani. You get increased risk of hypotony and infection with 4-point fixated lenses. What do you think this is going to mean as a whole for our profession and for the complicated cataract patient?
Well, I think one of the big needs that we're trying to address is right now there is no FDA-approved solution for these patients, right? Other than ACIOL. And, if you look at the PAT survey, ACIOLs are less than 10% of what's used. So people kind of generally agree most people are poor candidates for ACIOLs for one reason or another. And so I think having an on-label solution that was designed to solve this problem, that's going to be reliable and deliver reliable outcomes, I think is going to be a big step forward. And I think a big relief for surgeons that are doing a lot of jury-rig stuff and kind of hoping for the best. And as you mentioned, the complication rates in our current methods are pretty high. So I think people are going to be excited to move away from that. And then I think in practical terms, these cases take longer than any of us would like to admit right now. The ASRS just published a nice paper looking at the duration these surgeries are, and they're all over an hour currently. They are money losers for ASCs, money losers for doctors because they don't have dedicated reimbursement. So we're hopeful that this can solve a lot of those problems and really be powerful in people's armamentarium, both good for the surgeons and the patients.
Frank Brodie is an assistant professor of ophthalmology at UCSF, and he is a co-inventor of LensOne, the prosthetic capsular bag. Frank, thanks for coming on Retina.
Thanks so much, Scott. Thanks so much, John. It was really a pleasure to be on here.
Retina Up is an editorially independent podcast supported with advertising. Laura Brown is our production and marketing lead, and Liz Hogan is the head of business development. If you're interested in advertising on Retina Up, have a question for the mailbag, or just have a topic you'd like us to cover, send an email to info@retinup.com. Follow us on LinkedIn and visit retinup.com to sign up for our newsletter so you never miss an episode. Like and subscribe to the show whether you're on YouTube or a podcast streamer. Leave us a review if you're feeling generous. And if you like the show or if you found this episode useful, pass it along to a colleague. That really helps us expand our audience. We'll be back next time with a fresh perspective on what's happening in Retina.